Are we ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the annual parish meeting for Nettleham residents. It's not the annual parish council meeting, that comes in a month's time. This is not specifically a parish council meeting, although the parish council meeting will follow on directly when this meeting finishes at around about 8 o'clock. To start off with, I've got a pleasant task, and that is that it's the presentation of the Ray Sellers Community Award. This is a presentation to somebody within... Can you hear me at the back? Sorry, I forgot to put the microphone on. How's that? Is that better? Yeah. No, you can hear me, I know. It's got to make it worse. Presentation of the Ray Sellers Community Award. This is a presentation to somebody that's gone over and above the call of duty in terms of activities within Nettleham, supporting key community activities. And this year, I'm very pleased to say that the award has been given to Brian Burkett for his service to the Village Hall Committee, many years served on Village Hall Committee, and also for all his sterling work on the Nettleham Carnival, which is a key event in our calendar every year. So, Brian, would you like to come up to the front and receive your award? And Mark Sellers, Ray's son, will be presenting the award to Brian. Right.
Is Mark?
Okay. And the official photographer.
Is that my good one? Would you like to present that award? Can you come together, Chairman, please? A little bit more. A little bit more, please. Oh, I don't need a wide angle. And one more for look. Smile this time. Yes, all right. Oh, you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much. It's quite point because it's your dad that got me into this lark in the first place. I went to the carnival 20 odd years ago and got involved with that, and then after a couple of beers with Dad, he said, "We need a treasure at the Village Hall," and I'm still there. Yeah. I'm doing a great job. And I'm pleased to say we have saved the carnival this year. It's a little bit jittery after last year, but it was a favourable win, and I've got some new volunteers. We are 14th of July. Hope to see you all there. Thanks very much. Okay. Thank you very much.
And also, before we start the meeting proper, Joe would like to say a couple of words. So, do you want to use the shouting thing?
Really? Switched on.
I thought it was.
Red light at the bottom.
Yeah.
Good evening. I wouldn't like it here now. It was recently the annual twinning visit to Mulsanne in France, the Netherlands Twinning Association. This year was our turn to go over there. They're with us here next year, and they were here last year. We were presented by the Mayor of Mulsanne with this picture, which is to celebrate the 40th anniversary, and it's a representation of a Renault winning the 1978 Le Mans 24-hour race. I say representation, the colours are wrong and the car style's wrong, but apart from that,
It's got 4 wheels.
Very true. The only other funny thing about the trip really was that I was introduced by Monsieur le Maire as Monsieur Siddall, the Mayor of Lincoln. So there will be appropriate bowing and scraping later. Okay, that will be framed with some sort of representation what it is, and be hung either in here or the small hall. Just thought you'd like to see it.
Henceforth, Joe will be known as His Holiness the Mayor of Lincoln. Okay, thank you very much. So we should start meeting proper now, and get some of the tedious stuff out of the way first. I need to approve the minutes of the previous annual parish meeting held on the 25th of April. Who needs to approve that?
Somebody needs to nominate it.
Could somebody in the audience? Oh, Malcolm would nominate that. Approval. Seconded. Mike. All in favour? Yeah. Thank you. Anybody against? Thank you. That's passed. All right. Thank you for that. Okay. No matters arising, they'll be dealt with within the chairman's report, which I come to now, as he rapidly runs off. Leaving plenty of time for our guest speakers. That's the whole idea. Okay. I'm not going to read out the report in detail. That's available on various websites and things like that. But what I like to do is just draw your attention to a few key things that have happened in the village over the last 12 months. You may have noticed there's been a substantial improvement in the village hall, carrying on from what we talked about with Brian. The car park has been totally resurfaced, the drains have been replaced, and there's been new planting in that area, and it's given the whole village hall a real facelift. There's still more work to do, and Joe and Brian and the team are working hard to bring the village hall up to scratch, but there's some substantial changes been made there in the last 2 years, so good luck and well done to the lads. Right, as far as the parish council is concerned, we've recruited a new handy person, Kevin Pyra, and also added a facilities assistant, Jane Ashby, to our staff to help with managing the parish council's facilities and contractor monitoring. We use so many contractors now. To keep on top of what they're doing and making sure they're doing a good job for us. You may have noticed the grass cutting as an example recently. It's been a bit of a mess. That will be addressed. Talking about new housing developments, well, of course, you're probably all aware of the new development on Deepdale Lane, which is not only 50 new homes in accordance with our neighbourhood plan, but also will include a care home for the older residents, and that is going to be being built by Lace, and Nick Chambers here on my right will give you a few words about what's going on there shortly. Also, you may recall, can't think how anybody could forget, but a few years ago we did a Nettleham neighbourhood plan. And that has now, I'm pleased to say, that has now successfully been employed to resist a planning appeal for the 200 homes which were being proposed by Beale Homes off Larch Avenue. So that basically, if we hadn't had that neighbourhood plan in place, that development would be underway now. So a big thumbs up for neighbourhood plans. And Christmas saw our first successful festive market. I think everybody that went there thought it was absolutely fantastic. I was amazed, 40 different stall holders there, and everybody was having great fun, and it just hit the spot, I think. It was a wonderful event. Well organised. We were very impressed by for organisers to do something of that calibre for a first time. It was a fantastic achievement. We went through all the details with them before about a month before the event, and they just about covered everything that we could think of that they needed to take care of. So it was very, very professionally done, very well done. And they promised me that they're going to do even better this year. There's going to be even more stalls, and they're going to attend to some of the weaker points. There were only a few, but they'll be attended to. So it's going to be a tremendous Christmas treat for us all this year. And finally, you'll be glad to hear, there have been plenty of other exciting things that have been happening over the year within the village, and there's plenty more to come. We're going to have to revamp the neighbourhood plan in the coming 4 or 5 years, and so there's going to be some work going on there. There's lots of other things going on. So what I'm asking for is, if any of you have got some 5 spare minutes a day or more, and would like to help out either as a working party member on a sort of a relatively casual basis, or even, please, think about standing as a parish councillor. We could do with some new blood in the parish council. We do know that there will be a number of councils standing down this time next year. So there will be a number of vacancies. It doesn't tend to be run on, the council doesn't run on party lines at all. It's not party political at all. So you don't need to be a member of a political party. You just go along and basically make a difference. So we'll be providing lots of information over the coming 12 months through the media about being a councillor, what it entails, what we're doing, and we're trying to up the visibility of council activities in the community. So I think that's probably just about all I have to say about the activities of the council over the past 12 months and what else has been going on in the village. Would anybody like to ask any quick questions? No? Okay, that's good. We can move swiftly on to more important things. And our first guest is Nick Chambers on my right, who's the Chief Executive of LACE. LACE provide housing for basically over 55s of different care needs. But I won't go on any more about that. It's over to Nick for unfortunately Nick was going to have a projector presentation, but the bulb blew. You know, it's classic. But what we've decided is he's going to show you a few pictures on the front here. After the meeting at 8 o'clock, Nick will be retiring into that room that says private, but don't pay any attention to that. If you want to go and have a chat with Nick afterwards about what LACE are proposing to do and see how that might fit in with what your needs could be or are, then he's welcome. You're welcome to go and have a chat with him. He'll be delighted to spend some time talking to you about these things. Okay, so over to you, Nick. Thank you. Oh, you can use that one. I think
it is on. Do you want to use that one instead? It's more
if you want to use that one, that's fine.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, my name is Nick Chambers. I'm Chief Executive of LACE Housing Association. What I want to do, and I may be joined by a colleague shortly because I'm not quite sure whether I told him 7 or 7:30. So when he comes in looking rather embarrassed, try to do your best to make him even more embarrassed. My job really this evening is to give you a bit of an insight into our proposals for a site up on Deepdale Lane. What I thought I'd do is just give you a brief insight into what a housing association is, who are we, what do we do, a little bit about what LACE Housing does. Okay, some of you might be familiar with LACE Housing, some of you may not, and then just go on to talk a little bit about the proposed scheme. Now, I have brought some plans with me, so the chairman is exactly right. But in order to show you some of those plans close up, I'm going to rely upon my attractive colleague, the Vice Chair, Joseph, to hold that plan for you so that you can see it. But then there is an opportunity afterwards to go into this side room here. So first of all, as you're aware, if you keep in touch with what's going on nationally as far as government is concerned, there is a huge drive for housing. Housing is probably the highest it has ever been on the political agenda at the moment. And there are some ambitious plans for government with regards to wanting to be able to build at least 300,000 new homes by the middle of the next decade. So it's a rather ambitious plan. Part of that process is they're going to require a number of stakeholders to be involved in that. Some of those will be private builders, some of those will be local authorities, and some of those will be housing associations. Now I know that some housing associations already operate in Nettleham, and we've operated in and around Nettleham for over 55 years. So we're quite familiar with the area, and you will probably be quite familiar with some of those associations currently in Nettleham. But just to give you an idea, housing associations currently are all united by one purpose, okay? And that is to provide a good quality, safe home that is affordable for people, okay? Basically 1 in 10 people nationally live in a housing association home, so it's quite a high proportion. And in addition to that, year before, over 40,000 homes were built across the country by housing associations. Next year, the target is 65,000 homes across the country. And there are all sorts of different homes. Homes for young people, to support them getting a place of their own, all the way through to homes for people who are homeless, people who need support. We have an ever-ageing population, an ageing society, so how do we respond to that? But also general needs housing as well, for families and so forth. So quite a wide range of mix. All housing associations are voluntary organisations. They're all non-profit, and the majority have charitable status. Okay, so they generate a surplus, if you like, and that has to be reinvested into future provision. So when I talk to you a little bit about the Nettleham scheme, that's basically a combination of funding, but one of those elements of funding is surplus that Lace has generated across the county, which is now investing into Nettleham. Okay? For every £1 of public money, housing associations normally invest about £6. So it's 1 in 6. So you can imagine that when we do develop a new housing scheme, that often it's not just government money that goes into this. There's various other means of funding that makes this stack up. And I'm pleased to say, because there was some research done, that housing association tenants are more satisfied with their home. Their home is more energy efficient, and it's in better condition than many other sectors. So housing associations have a good reputation. They're very keen to maintain that reputation. You will find that there are some national housing associations that have a full country coverage, and there will be more localised housing associations. And Lace Housing is a localised housing association. So our purpose is to respond to the needs of older people within Lincolnshire and the surrounding area. That's our primary purpose. That's what we were set up to do, and that's what we're here to do in Nettleham. We're registered as a cooperative and community as part of the Cooperative and Communities Act 2014, so we're registered within that. We're funded by Homes England, which was renamed, if you like, rebadged with a new remake in January. But also we are regulated by the Regulator of Social Housing. So we do have standards that we have to meet, and those standards are monitored and we're regulated accordingly. I mentioned that we're voluntary, we're non-profit making, and I'm proud to say that Lace is an investor in excellence. So that's an external recognition where someone's come in, gone around Lace, spoke to our tenants, spoke to our staff, and as a result, we were recognised as an investor in excellence. We're a member of Blue Skies Consortium, so if you do ever see any literature around that refers to Blue Skies Consortium, it's basically a group of housing associations that work collaboratively together in order to seek as much money as we can from government and get it invested into Lincolnshire. That's our primary purpose. In addition to that, I chair the Greater Lincolnshire Housing Association Partnership and also Linc's Home Independent Living. So quite a bit of information there for you, which I hope has been useful, but gives you the context really that we're currently operating in. Now, Deepdale Lane. Well, I have to say, we've been involved in this project since 2015. It was in April 2015, that we actually were approached to see whether we would be interested in developing a specialist scheme for older people within the village. That was the first time. We've often looked, and we've had all sorts of conversation over the years with different people, but it was in 2015 that we began to look at this particular site. And as you know, we deliver the affordable provision, and within most planning applications, there is a condition, it's called a Section 106, or a Section 1 as far as the Localism Act is concerned, and it requires any developer to ensure that there is an affordable provision. The exciting thing about this project is the affordable provision is far greater than in fact what the district would require, and that's because we were able to secure a little bit bigger piece of land, so therefore we were able to do a little bit more about it. Okay. The first thing I just want to do is really say a big thank you. There are two people I have to say, or two organisations I have to say thank you to. First of all is Nettleham Parish Council. If we hadn't received the support of Nettleham Parish Council, if you had not contributed to the neighbourhood plan and fed all that back, we would not be developing in Nettleham, and I would not be standing here. I have to say, your chairman was absolutely fantastic at the district council when the planning application went in. So we're really excited to be here, because it's really nice when you're developing something in a community when you know that's what the community wants. So my presence here tonight is the start of a series of engagement events. So if you're involved in the local church, or if you're involved in the local school, or you've got any other community group operating that you think, we really would like you to come and talk to us about what you're doing, please do let me know. Okay, you can either contact me through the parish council, or alternatively you can contact me direct, either way. But we want to ensure that Nettleham is fully engaged with what we're doing, and that in effect you own it, not me. You own it, so that it's very much part of the community going forward. So that was the thanks. Now, what are we going to be doing? Well, first of all, I'm now going to call on Joseph to come and stand and hold the plan. Have you done this before? Fantastic. Okay. Hi, Neil. You're right. So basically, Joseph, come forward. So basically, for those of you who are familiar with what's going on Deepdale Lane at the moment, first of all, whilst we're technically started on site, we're not there yet. Basically, what's going on at the moment is that Deepdale Lane runs along the bottom here, and the access road is in, and at the moment Larkfleet Homes, or Allison Homes, who are building the private development, are currently developing the road going in and putting in the various infrastructure in order to enable us to get on site. I think the earliest time that we will actively have a presence on site will be around June of this year. So that's when you will see our presence a little bit more. The contractor who we have appointed to develop this site is a very good contractor. We've used this contractor on many occasions before, and they provide us with a very high quality product, and that's Linc Group. Okay, and I'm delighted to say Neil has just arrived. So if, when we disappear into a quiet room, Neil's going to join us as well. And if there are any questions you've got around the development itself, and how that is managed at all, then don't hesitate. Neil is here to respond to any questions, because they take consultation engagement very, very seriously. They want to make sure that you're fully engaged with this process as we go through. So what we've got really is we've got a combination of retirement apartments and bungalows. We have 22 retirement apartments which are here, and then we're surrounded by 14 bungalows. All of them are 2-bedroom, so there's no 1-bedroom, they're all of them 2-bedroom. And basically within the main block of retirement apartments, we have communal facilities such as mobility scooter storage and parking to assist people getting into the centre of the village, but also we have communal facilities as well to support social interaction and engagement. Often we find that people, when they get older, feel somewhat isolated and lonely. So the idea of being part of a community such as this is that they don't. It overcomes that. And we'll be engaging with other local voluntary organisations, so that facility is used as much as it possibly can. How's your arms? Okay, fantastic, brilliant. Okay, not yet. No. Okay. So it's a really exciting project, and then the bungalows. Whereas this is affordable rent, so what we've been able to do is agree a figure as far as the weekly rent is concerned with the district authority. So for those who are reliant upon benefits such as housing benefit, then that will be covered by the district authority with regards to the rent. So that's the other good news. It means that it's going to be at an affordable level. With regards to the bungalows are shared ownership, and what we're seeing is a real increase in the interest in shared ownership accommodation. Lots of people who what we call are asset rich, cash poor. So in other words, their property is really what they have. They've paid off their mortgage, they've got their property, it's probably worth somewhere around 180, 200,000. really concerned about the rising costs of care and support to remain and retain independence in their own home. So what they're looking to do is downsize, basically. And so what we're doing is these bungalows will be sold at 75% of the open market value. So basically, if there were 100,000, then you'd be paying 75,000 for them. And we're finding that a lot of people are looking at this as an option because it releases capital, releases cash from the sale of their property, but it still enables them to remain on the property ladder, still on the property market, but they're able to release cash to support their independence. So that's ultimately what the scheme will look like. With regards to an aerial shot, I can see you've got an MBQ in there, haven't you?
Nick doesn't want to mess his hand. Shall I take over?
It's up to you, Neil. So just from an aerial shot, you can see if you have visited around that area at the moment, you'll find that certainly along the back and along the side, they've put in the new public footpath that goes around the site, so you can have a walk round. If you do walk round, you'll enter the footpath from this side of the site. You'll go all the way to the end, all the way along here. And if you come as far as you can to where the footpath just about finishes at the moment, you'll see that this is our site. This is where we are. Okay. But there are a few challenges with levels because the land does slope. But we're trying to overcome those with regards to making sure that all the properties are as accessible as they can do, particularly for people who are reliant on aids and adaptations. So that's what the site does. We've also got some details of the plans about what the accommodation looks like on the inside, how it's laid out, both on the bungalows and also the apartments. And I'll take those through that because I'm really concerned about your arms. We can take those through, and if you'd like to look at them in more of a way, then you're more than welcome to do so. Do so well. You carry on. So in effect, timescales with regards to the programme itself. Well, first of all, we hope to be actively busy in June. We would expect the scheme to complete around September of next year. Okay. So having said that, if you are aware of people who may be interested, then in effect, the best thing to do is contact Lace Housing Direct first of all. Under the agreement with the District Authority, there is a slight complication, and that is that if you're interested in the affordable rented apartments, then the District Council is developing a new choice-based letting system. So in fact, nominations will go through the council and back to us again. But we will have an allocation panel for which we will chair, and ultimately the decision will fall upon the association in partnership with the District Authority. There are various criteria with regards to people's access to this accommodation, but as you can imagine, the biggest criteria is that it's local housing for local people. Okay, it's only when we spread the net further and the criteria goes further down, it's because we haven't had we haven't exhausted all the units within the locality. So again, this is very important for people who live within the village, who are thinking of moving, but want to stay in the village. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to respond to that particular need. It's only when we've exhausted that will we then look to the next. Just to confirm the kind of housing it is, I know people have referred to it as retirement housing, care homes and so forth. We have 4 levels of housing in Lace. Level 1 is for very active independent people, and I would say that probably the bungalows here are designed for just that. Okay. With regards to the apartments, we're talking level 2, level 3. So the majority of people looking to move into here will have maybe a support need that enables them to remain independent in their home, but equally if they needed care and they were eligible for care, then care could be delivered in this kind of environment as well. Okay, so it's not extra care housing, which is the next one up. If you're familiar with, say, Olsen Court in Lincoln, which is extra care, this is a lower level than that. But it's nevertheless, it's still designed for older people and maximising their independence. Just letting you know, the total cost of this is 4.8 million. Okay, and of that, we're delighted that sort of 1.4 million has come from government through Homes England. So that's a real good positive sign for us. But in addition to that, we're using surplus, we're using private finance, and Joseph is also contributed as well. And thank you for that. £1.63, which was really, really kind. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. As I said, Linc are going to be delivering the scheme. Thornton Firkin will be our employer's agent. Our development agent will be Longhurst. You'll see me around quite a bit as well, because I'm actively engaged in this as well. And finally, it also, you might even find Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue involved in this as well, because this scheme, in addition to all you'd expect it to do, like photovoltaic cells, solar panels and things of that nature, it will also include a sprinkler system. So you can imagine the concerns and the tragedy last year at Grenfell. Lace has always had a policy around developing schemes with sprinkler systems, and this is no exception. So this will have a sprinkler system installed as well. I've reflected upon as much as I possibly can around criteria, and really I hope that's been useful. I hope it's given you a brief insight into what we hope to do. But as I say, the invitation is there. If you'd like me to visit any other place in Nettleham, as long as it's all legit, I'm more than happy to do so, and to do a presentation with a digital projector with a board that works. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. We've got a couple of minutes for questions if there are any burning issues that people want to raise. Otherwise, I would suggest that the best thing to do is have a one-to-one with Nick in the private office afterwards. Any burning questions of a general nature? Okay. Right. I do realise that, in fact, if you look at the agenda, I've actually... Do you last? Okay. I missed the bit about the financial officers report, but Julia's declining to take that one on for the minute. You'll do it after Richard. Okay.
I'll bring them up for you.
Okay, so moving on then, our second guest speaker tonight, we're very honoured to have two guest speakers, I think, is Richard Davis, who's the portfolio holder on Lincolnshire County Highways, and he's going to tell us about what's happening with the roads. Thank you, Richard.
Indeed, thank you. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And firstly, thank you very much, Council, for inviting me along to talk to you this evening. It's particularly poignant to when we talk about Councillor Sellers. I knew Councillor Sellers when I first joined Lincolnshire County Council in 2009. I was put onto the police authority, and of course, Ray was a big advocate of the police authority. He certainly spent a lot of time. He was very much passionate about Nettleham. I remember that very distinctly. And he, I think, was a butcher. Had been previously. My family are in farming and butchery as well. So he was a good man. And it's nice to see you here this evening. So that's quite poignant. Thank you. So Lincolnshire County Council and Lincolnshire Highways. I am the portfolio holder for Highways, Transport and Technology at Lincolnshire County Council, which very briefly means I'm responsible for potholes, traffic wardens and slow broadband. So as you can imagine, in a past life I probably did something very horrible, or at least my boss Martin Hill, who's the leader of the council, I must have run over his dog or something when I got this job. But joking aside, it's an incredibly rewarding part of being on the county council. I represent an area of Grantham, a town I grew up in and was born in, towards the south of the county, as you know, and I'm one of 70 councillors that covers the whole authority area. Obviously your local councillor, Councillor Brockway, is in the audience this evening. However, we operate what's called a strong leader model at Lincolnshire County Council. So each area of the council's responsibilities are divided up. So we've got health, adult social care, children's services, highways, and then we have a portfolio holder, an exec member, who is ultimately responsible for that area. And I am responsible for highways and transport. So the big area of what I tend to talk to communities about is undoubtedly the condition and state of our roads, the availability of bypasses, and then other things such as public transport and schools transport, which I'm also responsible for. In terms of the broader context to the Lincolnshire issue, we have the third or fourth largest road network in the country. We have 5,500 miles of road. We have almost no trunk road network. And by that I mean dual carriageways. That's the responsibility of Highways England. Now, why that's important is because most counties have quite a significant amount of trunk road running through them, which enables their road networks to carry a lot more traffic. Of course, if like me you live in Lincolnshire and lived here a long time, you know if you're travelling around Lincolnshire, you will inevitably find yourself on smaller B's and C class roads, which means our smaller road network is incredibly important to us. Whereas in other places such as Northamptonshire and Staffordshire, where they have lots of dual carriageways and motorways, their road network is perhaps not as critical in the same way ours is. Now, the real challenge, of course, for Lincolnshire County Council as an authority is funding. By the time this decade is up, in real terms, our funding from government, where almost all of our money comes from, will have halved. So we'll have gone from something like a £1.6 billion a year authority to about 800 million. Now, there's no way you can take that level of money out of any kind of organisation and not see a reduction in services. It's a harsh reality of life. Whatever your political opinion is, the reality is we couldn't continue to spend money as we do, as we were doing, and as a result, local authorities in particular have seen a significant reduction in funding. What that has meant around highways is particular, what we would call, slightly controversially, non-essential services. We've heard mentioned grass cutting already, and street lighting has had to be reduced in order that we can maintain what we spend on blacktop. And secondary to that, we've also had to reduce quite significantly the number of people we employ, and you'll be very pleased to hear we've reduced the number of councillors as well. Now, all that aside, in real terms, we spend about £40 million a year on our road network, and I think probably the first real statistic I'd like to bamboozle you this evening is the cost of getting all of our roads up to the prescribed national standard. A few years ago, we looked at what would it take if we were to borrow the money, do what's called a PFI, they were very popular amongst under the last national government, and to borrow the money to get all of the 5,500 miles of road up to the prescribed national standard. And 4 years ago, that analysis was done, and they estimated then it would be at least £300 million. So in real terms, the backlog of work on our road network here in the county is up over £300 million. Now, I mentioned we spend £40 million a year, so already you can see there's, however you dress it, there's quite a problem there. In the benefits of the round, I suppose, I should tell you it's not just Lincolnshire that has this problem. Nationally, it's estimated the gap is about £12 billion. Now, these are all massive numbers, which sometimes makes it very hard, but what it means on the ground is that very often, when Jackie and her colleagues on behalf of local communities such as yours come forward and want a pedestrian crossing, and want a road resurfaced, they want potholes filled, the standard answer you are going to get from us is no, because the vast majority of the service requests, and we get about 70,000 contacts a year through the county council, people logging on or ringing us up asking for things we are unfortunately unable to do. So, having given you all the bad news and hopefully quelled any ambition that I'm going to build you a bypass, I can give you, there is good news. Now, one of the things, it was very interesting listening to the Lace talk, Nick was talking about Lace and some of its achievements. One of the things that Lincolnshire Highways has done is 2 years ago, the government every year looks at all highways authorities and assesses them for how well they take care of our road network. And Lincolnshire Highways was one of the first 2 authorities in the country to get the top layer 3 banding. Now, that's great professionally for the individuals responsible and involved. I think it's good because it enables me to stand here and tell you, despite what you may think, Lincolnshire Highways are good, but more credibly and more importantly, it meant we didn't see our highways budget reduced. Some councils, such as Northamptonshire, which has recently been in the news for any of you that you follow local government, weren't able to get that and saw a significant reduction in their dedicated highways ground. We didn't do that, and that's been quite useful. Now, why that's perhaps important to people on the ground is one of the ways we had to do that is by adopting what the government and the professionals call a highways asset management strategy. Now, we have lots of acronyms, we have lots of strategies and lots of policies in highways, but this one's particularly important because it drives some of the behaviour that people often complain about. Now, I'm sure it's happening around Nettleham. I can't remember an incident particularly recently, but what you will inevitably see is repairing roads that you don't think need repairing. And the reason this is because it's a preventative approach that best uses the money. There was an incident in Woodall Spa where I was contacted by the local parish council there because we were resurfacing a stretch of road that, in the words of the chairman of the council there, said there was nothing wrong with it, but yet Kirkstead Road End is in dire state. And the simple reason is if we have a limited budget, we can use that money before a road fails, before it gets too bad, to preserve the life. Rather like you creosote your garden fence, well, no, you shouldn't be creosoting, it's illegal, but you treat your wooden fence, don't you? You don't start treating it after the rot sets in, or you don't paint your wooden windows after the rot, you do it ahead of that. And that's what we do with our road network, because very often some roads are in such poor condition that they could spend potentially hundreds of thousands of pounds to repair them. A good example is, for those of you who know it, out on the Fens, Follodyke Bank, a very important local road that connects Stickney with some of the local communities. We're having to repair it because it's sliding into the dike. To repair a 100-metre stretch is going to cost about £1.6 million, because we're going to have to basically float the road over the boggy ground, and that's a real problem. If anybody tells you that climate change isn't a problem here, I can assure you it is. We are seeing the impacts of climate change on our road network quite substantial. I think one of the things that I'll probably finish off with before we move on to questions is really what is our approach to managing the road network. One of the big changes we've tried to see is move towards a self-help model. One of the things I'm really pleased that we now do is we publish all of our plans online, so you can see all of the issues, you can see those roads we're going to repair over the next 12 to 24 months. Hopefully very shortly we'll be publishing our 3-year plan. So while we can't necessarily give you what you want today, we can work with local communities in order to get you that kind of improvement you want over the longer term. And I'm particularly pleased to hear about your neighbourhood plan. I've been pushing for these massively because they do make a real difference. And I think when you talk about planning, that's a key consideration. And actually, probably planning is the thing I'll finish on really. One of the questions I often get asked is, we as our statutory consultancy for housing development, and somebody will come forward, and I live in a rural village, and somebody will want to kind of put a planning application in for 50 houses, a completely inappropriate development, and Lincolnshire Highways will be consulted as part of the process. And all too often, our response is, there is no issue. And people will turn to me and they say, it's mad, it's going to create all of this new traffic, it's going to be a real problem for our local community, it's going to clog our roads up. The reality is, and we've heard about it already from the Drive for Housing, that the National Planning Policy Framework states that unless a development is going to create a severe impact on the road network, and you're talking 30 or 40% over capacity, we can't say no. Now that's a real problem, because very often most of Lincolnshire's roads are nowhere near capacity. But if you were to go from 3 or 4, 5, 6 times more traffic on the roads, you are really going to notice it. And of course what we can't do is claim back damage done on some of our smaller roads by big business, etc. And that's quite frustrating. Currently, you pay road fund licence, road tax, as some people call it. That doesn't come to me, I'm very sorry to report, nor does the fuel duty monies that the government collects. All of that goes into the central pot. In the near future, we are going to be able to start getting a dedicated grant from the road fund licence that we can use to invest on improvements such as bypasses. Locally, one of the things we are doing as part of our forward plan, and Jackie and others will know already, is we're looking at replacing the A46 thin surface dressing. You'll know in particular there are stretches of the A46 that are in dire need of repair. This is 15 or so years ago. The wonder technology at the time was a technology called thin surface dressing. It was done on the continent very effectively, and the idea is you could bring it over here and we could repair and rebuild roads very cheaply. Like a lot of things, that seems too good to be true, it was. And vast stretches, and I'm not a highways engineer, but the explanation is that the roads delaminate, so they literally, like the leaves of a book, come apart, and you'll see south of Lincoln, in particular on the A46, there's whole swathes of the road have come away. Now, using some of this extra money we've had from the government, which is about £4 million, I know it sounds like a lot of money, but of course, if I'd ask you to consider the backlog of 300 million, it's not a great amount. One thing we are doing is using this money as a dedicated project to go around the county and replace all this thin surfacing, A, because a lot of it's failed already, and B, because a lot of it will fail over the coming years. And really, this forward approach we're trying to adopt is to stop roads getting into a dire state before they do. Where that leaves some of our smaller backplanes, well, that's a more challenging place to be, and there's some discussions as to whether we reduce speed limits or we do some way of demetalising them to make them easier and safer to drive on. But I think at that point, Mr. Chairman, I'm very happy to take questions, criticism, complaints. Rotten fruits, always appreciated. By all means, so anything I can help with.
I think everybody was screaming for rotten fruit on the way in. I'm not sure. Malcolm.
Yes, Malcolm Lee, President. 7 years ago, in 2011, I was canvassing with Ray Sellers, and we had some good news for the residents of Stofford Road. It was going to be resurfaced. After the election, as it usually happens, this was withdrawn and it wasn't going to be resurfaced because the road was too far gone. It needed relaying. Now, some recent good, nothing's happened in between apart from a bit of patching, but recent good news is that it's going to be resurfaced. Now, if 7 years ago the substructure was so bad that it couldn't be resurfaced, I don't want to see wasted money. I don't want to see it resurfaced and then it all peel off again.
Okay,
That makes sense.
yeah, no, it did. Thank you. It's a good point. I can't comment on what was said kind of 7 or 8 years ago.
This was from the road traffic engineers of the county council.
What I can tell you is that next financial year there is a reinstatement plan in place where it is going to be reconstructed and it is going to be resurfaced in length. So that's quite
resurfaced, not reconstructed.
Well, I mean, candidly, it's not a constructed road, so you can't really unless we're not going to dig it all out and build a brand new road. No. Actually, one of the problems we have here in Lincolnshire is most of our roads aren't what you would technically call constructed. They are literally, with respect, layers of dirt that have had then layers of tarmac on. And this is one of the problems, certainly on the Fen roads, for example, that weight of the tarmac itself does as much damage as the vehicles passing over it. But it is on the forward programme. I know there's been some quite intense communication about it. Rather than just coming in and patching it, I think we've made it safe where possible and filled those very deep potholes. But it's going to be completely resurfaced, playing back probably 40 or 60 mil and then relayed that way.
Thank you.
More questions? John? John Hill.
A minute. Going the other way.
Well, as a highway engineer, I just feel you're in an impossible position. The reality is, I think it's more than 300 million in current value to put Lincolnshire roads to save a 10-year life expectancy out of them. In Nettleham alone, in my own professional opinion, what it's worth is, I think we're talking about $1 billion. Over the decades, you've been progressively cut and cut and cut by central government, and really, and effectively, what you're having to do is manage decline. And I don't think the public has really got their heads around how bad that decline is and the rate of that decline. And I wonder where we're going to finish up. Are we going to finish up with a significant proportion of our rural road network untrafficable because the demand is not there, and we're still not engaged with that reality, I think. I wouldn't want your job.
I don't anticipate
I've been there. I wouldn't want your engineers' jobs or whatever. Because how do they manage a situation where you know that you need at least 4 or 5 times the income to stay still?
Thank you. I mean, very good points. It's always nice when as a non-highways engineer talking roads, it's great when there's a highways professional in the audience, so it's good to hear from you. The reality is you're absolutely right, we are managing decline. I think one of the issues that the recent cold snap has brought to a head is that I think people didn't appreciate it, and I think it's highlighted the fragility of the road network. And what's happened is in particular, cold, mild weather is the worst combination because the water gets into the road, it freezes, it expands, and then it melts again, freezes, expands. It does terrible damage. And I think what it's done in probably a very short space of time is done the kind of damage that may have taken 3 or 4 years ordinarily to have happened. And it has got to this point where the infrastructure is crumbling. People very often say, they manage in other countries. Of course they do, but they spend a lot more on their roads. They spend more on their rail than we do. And I think unless we can, from a national perspective, get a real conversation around how we fund things like roads and rail properly, we are going to be in this situation. And of course, it's most prevalent in counties like Lincolnshire because there isn't any, candidly, and I'm responsible for it, there's very little public transport. There's virtually, once you get past Lincoln, very little in the way of rail. So the roads are the lifeblood, and it's not, we don't have the A1s and the A52s, these big roads that are dual in other parts of the country. So these minor roads they support the towns and the villages that we all live and work in. I think for too long, perhaps politicians like myself and others at the county council haven't been as candid as we are now. I think for a while we were able to say, well, we're doing this, we're doing all this good stuff, And we have done a lot of good stuff. We're spending a record amount on capital infrastructure. We're building bypasses in Lincoln, in Grantham, in Spalding. We're looking at building a big bridge in Boston, for example. But it's the day-to-day boring stuff. And fundamentally, the problem is potholes aren't sexy. Because if they were sexy, ministers would be keen to be photographed fixing them. If you want to build a bridge, you can do that, because somebody will eventually turn up in a very, very clean set of PPE and a high-vis jacket and have his photograph taken next to it. The fact that Scotland Lane in Nettleham desperately needs £200,000 or £300,000 spending on it just doesn't register in the national psyche in the same way. But of course, it's not just roads. You know, we spend 5 times more on adult social care in the county. We spend our budget's about £250 million. And that looks after, perhaps 25,000, 30,000 people. So we only spend 5 or 6% of our budget on roads, yet it's what we so much rely on. The question, of course, is if we want to spend more on roads, what do we spend less on? And obviously councillors would be the first.
Or the other option is, where do we get more income from?
Yeah, potentially. Although some people talk about road licensing, etc. I'm not sure the Treasury, if we started doing anything too innovative that was generating money, wouldn't very quickly have their eye on it for other things. But we do need national level politicians to get behind these kind of issues. And it used to be potholes was a bit of a joke. Potholes, what was it? Dog fouling, potholes and speeding. If you could fix those in local government, you'd be forever in a job. But it is true, and they are the things that matter. Too often, I think nationally, they're ignored in favour of other things.
So what basically is the county council, how are they pressuring the government to actually do something about this?
Well, I think you've signed up to our fairer funding campaign. So Lincolnshire County Council, in conjunction with a lot of other rural authorities, have gone to government and said, look, this situation is untenable. So, for example, if we in Lincolnshire got the same funding, the average funding per head of population as the rest of the country, every year we would have £116 million more to spend than we currently have got. Now, all we're saying is, somebody in Lincolnshire surely should receive the same funding from government as somebody from Birmingham. Now, don't get me wrong, the inner cities have challenges, don't they? But I spoke to somebody from at an LGA event who was from Birmingham. So, well, of course, being a social worker in Birmingham is much more difficult than being in Lincolnshire. So I said, well, what do you mean? Well, of course, we've got these heavy workloads and these complex cases and problem families. And I said, oh, so that's fine. How many people do they see a day? They average about 20 calls a day, a social worker. Well, can you imagine being in Lincolnshire? There's no way you get around 20 people. Just driving, I live in Grantham, but it's 20, near Grantham, it's 30 miles, 25 miles away. It'll probably take me an hour to get home tonight. The rurality issue is a real problem. Now, the government has said that they're going to look at the funding formula, and bizarrely, for every county council in the country to get the minimum spend, this average spend, would require only one county council to lose its budget, have it see its budgets reduced. Unfortunately, it's Surrey. And Surrey has a lot of Tory MPs, and I'm a Tory, so I can't call them too much. We're probably not going to be too supportive of that.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
I need to look at someone online. Could I just ask, there was a programme on the One Show, 7 o'clock, you're probably always out at 7, but anyway. They were looking at recycling plastic, and it was really, really good. It made really sense to me. For example, at the top of Washed Out Lane on the A46, it was really dangerous. So the chaps came along, patched it up, and it's already coming away. But this scheme in Scotland sounded really good to me because it stretches, it moves. Are you looking at new methods of patching up?
Thank you, it's a good question. The plastic road one's a good one. I tried it on Cumbria as well. The reality is the highways engineers, we have a laboratory here at Rysome, are very, very sceptical. We've done some initial work. Holland, they trialled it about 10 years ago and have stopped doing it. The reason being is that the material doesn't respond very well to changes in weather condition. We're always looking at new technologies and new approaches. The reality is that the technology we know we've got isn't the issue, it's the cost. And when you start mixing, and Mr. Hill here will probably be able to tell you better than me, but when you start joining materials of different properties, that bond is invariably where the problem can stem from. Most potholes in Lincolnshire, for example, are caused by utility companies building trenches, and we can't make them reinstate to the right level. So there is, I think, a healthy degree of scepticism in some of these wonder products. And the plastic roads thing, it'll be interesting to see. Holland, they stopped doing it. Scotland, they're trying it. Cumbria have trialled it, but aren't doing any more trials as of this moment. So it'll be interesting to see. There is a bit of a sense sometimes that that it's a great way of getting rid of plastic, because that is a real issue. Whereas in reality, I'm not so sure that's the problem we're fixing. The problem we need to fix is our roads, and we know what the fix is. It's a function of spend. It really is. But it's a good question.
We'll take one last question.
You talk about the cost. Can you tell me why you fill potholes on one road one week, and the following week you go and rip it all up and resurface it?
Yes, I can.
And also, can I just add, why do you fill potholes up when it's wet inside it?
Okay, I'll take the first question then first. The reality is if a pothole is more than 40 millimetres deep, a couple of inches deep, we have to, as per our policy, fix it within 24 hours. If we don't, we are liable to be sued, and our Section 38 defence, which is why we don't pay out most of our claims, is invalid. So at the moment, although we are looking to stretch, Cambridgeshire, for example, no longer fix things within 24 hours. What we're trying to do now is, rather than, if a pothole's formed in one part of the road, the chances are the rest of the road's about to fail, which is why we'll very often try and resurface. And resurfacing is far better fix. In terms of the crews, we have 26 crews out, potholing at the moment. They are, where possible, supposed to dry or blow out or brush out potholes. It's not always possible, especially when it's wet, horrible weather. Sometimes it is wet. However, if the pothole is deep, we need to get something in there, because if somebody goes over it, especially at speed, there could be a serious accident.
But it comes out quickly.
It does. Unfortunately, to put the traffic management in order to put the road surface down properly requires more than 24 hours.
But why fill them up and go on the following week and take it all up?
Because that initial repair is just a safety repair. It's an emergency repair where it's, in particular, if it's in a dangerous location or a dangerous size. So that's how we operate. Yeah, I mean, it's not very often that we're back within a week. I wish it was. I wish we were that responsive. But
Okay, I think I'm going to have to wind up the questioning now. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And, I'm coming to explain to us the problems you have. We have every sympathy. Okay, now one item on the agenda I skipped earlier on in error was the financial officer's report. Julia is our responsible financial officer, and she would just like to say a couple of words about where we are financially with the parish council budget.
Can you hear one, John?
Oh, right, sorry. Hold on.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. As you can see, there's a report before you which gives you all the basic information really that you need. There's not really a lot to add. I mean, as you can see, we did have to increase the precept. I'm sorry, this is going to be mainly because we had to take on the grass cutting and the cutting of the stringing and weed spraying from the county council, because they'd had to cut their budgets to deal with that. We have had to spend more on our capital expenditure this year than we actually allocated, but we did have earmarked reserves to cover the majority of that. Where we didn't have sufficient money, we've actually had to take it out of the general reserve. That was really all I had to say. We have also made quite a few grants this year to a number of local organisations. We've given money to the local Lindsay Age UK. We've also given money to the Christmas get-together, which they're hoping to do this year for people who will be spending Christmas on their own. We've also given money to the festive market, and to the dementia cafe as well. So we have given quite a lot to the local organisations. But if there's anybody else that's interested, any voluntary groups that we're looking for, let us know. We have got a new pot now that we can look at. That's it.
Okay. Thanks very much. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes. If anybody has any general questions they'd like to ask or points they want to raise, it's Jackie.
Right, just a second. Musical mice, it's called. Thank you. I was just going to ask Richard Davis, actually, go back to Richard and say, Richard, when people want to report, could you advise them how and not to do to fix my street?
Yes, no, thank you, Jackie. That's a very good point. the question was that how is best to interact with us as the local authority. In particular, if you're reporting a fault like a pothole or a broken street light, I really would ask that you go to our website. It's candidly the cheapest way for us to deal with it. And also, if you register on there and put in your email address, you will get an update. There are bugs in the system, I'll warn you now, but you will then get an update when we're able to come back to you and tell you what's going to be done and when. And that's by far and away the easiest way of doing it, and it certainly helps us to keep our costs down, because like I said, we get about 70,000 inquiries a year coming in, people asking us to do stuff, so thank you for that, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Richard Wilkinson, Moshlight Lane. I will concur with you about the streetlights. I reported that recently, and 2 of our streetlights, and the email have been repaired, and they've come back. So that's the email went through confirmed. So thank you very much.
Fantastic.
I'd like to ask the parish council, and I think there is probably an answer. Cadent did an awful lot of work around this village, replacing the gas consumptions to gas mains to houses. And I was told at the time that there would be a slurry cover this year on the footpaths, certainly in Washlight Lane. Now, the weather has been as it has rather brought the surface of the verges on, encroaching even more onto the footpaths, and where people used to be able to walk 2 by 2, they're now single file. And I'm just wondering whether there are any news about Cadent doing what they said they were going to do.
Okay, I think Julia is probably the best one to answer that. Have you been in touch with the contractors?
Yeah, we did speak to the contractors at the time, and they said that because of the weather, it was finished sort of at the autumn time. They did put some sealing down, they did do some works, but they said they would come back in the spring and replace where was needed and all the rest of it. I haven't seen them around, but they are on my list of people to contact and chase again. So I think what we'll need to do is try and organise a meeting with them to actually go out and look at certain areas that do seem to need, more work doing to them, as it were.
Reseeding might have been done, but
yeah.
the slurry cover of the footpaths is not apparent.
No.
Okay. We'll chase up on that one, Richard. Yes.
Neil Coos from the Linc Group. Forgive me for interjecting into your parish council meeting, and I'm only an invited guest. But a suggestion, if I may make, please, not a question. We're currently building Virken at Newark, which is the UK centre for the track lane equipment. So every road in the world has been laid by a Virken design machine, and the 2 Virken brothers in Belgium invented the track lane equipment. I believe there is an opportunity that you and I could discuss, that because you've got Rhizome Materials Laboratory up the road, we have Virken who design and manufacture all the world track lane equipment. Could we not use Lincolnshire County Council, Virken as the designer and manufacturer of the road lane equipment, and Rhizome College and even our local university for the chemists to put together a research partnership? And I'd be happy to try and facilitate that.
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we Lincolnshire County Council, it's our laboratory at Rhizome. We're one of the few authorities left that have one. We do a lot of work. We work very closely with a number of local providers. We're always happy to talk to people. I mean, I think it comes back to my point about expectation management, really. There's only so many ways you can cut a small cake. It's still a small cake. And I think one of the things we have to do is we don't have the staff anymore to spend a lot of time, dare I say, on these kind of bigger projects. We just don't have the manpower and the resources. That's not to say it's not something we'd explore. I mean, we are found a member of the Future Highways Research Club, and we have received quite a lot of advanced technology through that in terms of some of the work that's done with the mobile asphalt plants, and that's proved very successful. The reality is, and I think it's important I stress this, is there are no, bit with respect to plastic roads, new equipment, it's cash. It really is cash. We know what the solutions are. I'm sure Mr Hill will know in detail what some of the solutions are for the roads around here in Nettleham. It fundamentally comes down to that ability to spend money, and at the moment we are so far behind that it's going to require something quite special.
Well, with that, I'll have to draw the meeting to a close now.
thanking everybody for your attendance and especially thanking our guest speakers. Perhaps you'd like to put your hands together for a final time. We'll have a short adjournment for a couple of minutes while we rearrange the tables before we start our parish council meeting. Everybody's more than welcome to stay for the parish council meeting. You might find it very enlightening, on the other hand. But thank you all again for attending. It's been great.